Good morning and welcome to the Merse circuit in the Czech Republic for the opening round of the inaugural, the first ever GT4 Central European Cup. 13 cars assembled in what is the growth category of international motor racing. This year we have 5 separate GT4 championships organised around Europe by SRO, and this is the latest of the new championships to surface. And looking very much forward to putting these 13 cars out around this 21-turn circuit. If you've never had a view of the circuit at Most, it's tight, it's twisty, a few fairly fast open corners, and certainly looking at the GT Masters cars out in the session ahead of this one, there were points where drivers were going off the circuit, going for rodeo rides over the curbs and beyond across the grass before rejoining. One slight problem we had here yesterday in free practice was out beyond the curbing. There are some drain covers that have had a tendency to be removed, so drivers all told very much to stay within the confines of this circuit. Plenty of space for these cars to go out and put their craft down around the circuit. Not so long ago, the championships for GT4 heavily filled by the KTM crossbows. You can see at the front 4 places in the row here: the blue one, the white one, blue and pink one, and the black, orange and white one. But Mercedes and Audi joined the show in recent years with new cars for GT4. And in the background, top left of the shot, you can see 2 of the Porsche Caymans that have been such strong representatives over the years in GT4 racing. Both Porsche Caymans coming from Allied Racing, and very much a staple. But nothing stands still in motor racing for very long at all, because with new manufacturers coming in all the time and providing a way into GT racing, a lot of people, for them, racing a GT4 would be all they would want to do. But what we're seeing is a lot of them are doing it because they have a view to stepping up to the more powerful and more expensive GT3 cars. But the fact for a much more reasonable price you can go out around some fantastic circuits around Europe is something that people are gathering in huge numbers. This one quite a slim entry to start with, 13 cars, but the GT4 Central European Cup is going to go on for races at the Nürburgring, Red Bull Ring, Zandvoort and Slovakia Ring, and numbers I'm sure will be the higher side of 20 in the forthcoming rounds. And certainly, judging by the 44 car entry, absolutely incredible field we had for the opening round of the GT4 European Series at Zolder a few weeks ago. Many more will be coming across in that championship because they want to race on some of the circuits that are visited by the Central European Cup. Right now, the start of qualifying is delayed by about 5 minutes. In fact, they should be going out in just under 2 minutes because we had a red flag period during the GT Masters qualifying. Dennis Marshall went off in his BMW. Not too much damage done, but the car needed to be rescued from right round towards the end of the lap. I think it was at the penultimate corner, in fact, the BMW went off. 5-minute delay in that while that was brought back on a flatbed truck. And boy, it couldn't have been any closer at the end of the GT Masters qualifying. 0.009 of a second, 9,000ths of a second between a late grab of pole position and the driver who was holding that pole for a very long time indeed. So for Kirchhofer, he was demoted, but through at the end, Jeffrey Smith came good. But let's have a look at the circuit coming up soon. Wait till the cars go out. As you can see right at the top corner of your screen, we have an Audi R8 LMS. Hamza Ovega will be racing for Racing One, German racer. He raced at Zolder in the opening round. He's in the only Audi, but I have a feeling there'll be more R8 LMSs as this series progresses. Certainly a car that's been very well received since it was launched last year, as has been the Mercedes AMG. You can see the Beza Group entry at the bottom. As ever, the man behind the team, Franjo Kovac, will be driving that, sharing this weekend with a Czech racer, Thomas Pekar. Quite a few Czech drivers have taken the opportunity to join this championship. And the Maserati from Scuderia Vioba course looks like it's going to be the first out onto the circuit, or certainly up towards pit exit. Giuseppe Fascicolo and Romy Dallan. See quite a few of those Gran Turismo MC4s. And the second one going out looks like it's the one from E-Sky WP Racing. That's with Polish racer Maciej Markinovic and Lukas Kreski. And then the one and only Sin R1. More patriotic colour scheme now for the Bulgarian entered car. Red, white and green. That's Sin R1 driven by Bulgarian racer Ivan Vlashkov. So the drivers had free practice running yesterday, and the fastest time of all was set by a KTM crossbow from Felbermayr Reiter, David Klar and Matthias Drescher. So a Czech and Polish combination. Great view looking over the circuit at Moss, the castle in the background. I feel every circuit in Central Europe should have a castle overlooking it. Great weather here. Lovely weather yesterday. Certainly wonderful spring weather. There is the castle high on the hill. Find the castle, then locate the circuit. Have a quick think of other circuits you can think of with castles overlooking them. Obviously, with a bit of a telescope, you'd be able to see the circuit quite at various points if you're in the Nürburg Tower. But up in this northwest corner of the Czech Republic, not a million miles from the border with Germany. In fact, quite a few of the German races come from Chemnitz, just over the border. So looking for them. They're going out in the TCR races later today. Packed programme of events here at Most, and certainly early this morning when I came in, the crowds starting to flow in with this wonderful array of cars to see. The GT3 cars in GT Masters, these wonderful GT4 cars. They sound good, don't they? Look good, not as spectacularly covered in wings and aerodynamic addenda as the GT3 cars, but certainly look very good indeed, and wonderful level of presentation of these races. So the first car onto the track, Hamza Avega, number 16 Audi from Racing 1, going around the 21st of the 21 corners onto the start-finish straight, still trying to get some heat into his tyres. Let's see if we travel around with him. Past the pits, as you can see, wonderful shots with the hills in the background. Turn 1. There's a corner coming up that focuses the mind. You're hard down the start-finish straight, and then really, really heavy braking. And I tell you what, it's sharper on the driver's approach than it appears in that shot taken on the exit of Turn 2. Avega puts the power down, still quite gently, just getting a feel for weather conditions. It was warmer yesterday afternoon than it is now. But then out of Turn 2, Turn 3 and 4 are fastish sweepers. And then a little tightens up a bit, and then you get a series of chicanes down towards what effectively is the far end of the circuit. Here goes Avega through that sequence of twisters, then down to Turn 10. Every circuit map I've seen of this circuit has a different corner number, but some list them as only having 12 corners. But I walked most of the circuit yesterday, and I would say the 21 corners is pretty much spot on. Little bit of gradient change, various points of the circuit. As you can see, there's a climb out of turn 6. In fact, there's a wonderful low camera angle that we will be picking the cars up with at certain points as they go around the fast back section. Then it goes really, really slow all over again. A very technical circuit as they approach the back side of the paddock. There is that technical circuit. There is the castle in the background. That is turns 15 through to 17. And then coming out of 17, just being approached here, drivers have to be on the power as early as they dare, but it's a very, very tricky part of the circuit because a lot of drivers put the power down too soon, find the tail starting to sweep out. But again, lovely low camera angle coming out of turn 21 down the start-finish straight, waiting for representative times to be set. And the first car out of the pits, 1 minute 50.54. So that's about 9 seconds off the fastest time set yesterday by the Felbermeyer Writer Engineering KTM Crossbow, David Clark and Matthias Dresser. 1 minute 41.5. But as you can see from Avega, oh well, there we are. That will be one of many drivers. That's car 77. That is one of the 2 Maseratis in the field, and that's Giuseppe Fascicolo getting it wrong into turn 1. As you turn in, it's more than 90-degree right-hander. You've been flat out past the pits and leave your braking just too late. In fact, in every class of racing yesterday when I was watching practice, someone got it wrong, and in some categories more than just a few someones, off up the escape road at turn 1, where the track does go straight ahead, but as you can see, you have to thread your way, as the 77 Maserati did, through a chicane of bollards, and then you're allowed to rejoin at turn 3, having cut out the very, very sharp right-hander. There is turn 1 replay, so I expect we'll see the Maserati coming in and going straight on any moment now. 2-part qualifying, of course. Drivers 1, if you've got a 2-driver pairing out in the cars at the moment. So the clock counting its way down. New fastest time, way quicker. Now 1 minute 45.53. So that first lap from Avega, as I said, 9 seconds off the fastest of yesterday's lap. But now the fastest lap in hand, a Pro Sport Performance Porsche. Luca Volgarden, 1 minute 45.53. There is the replay. Just locking up the brakes and then driving at a snail's pace past the tyre walls. And Italian racer Fascicolo goes back on his way, but clearly this lap will be one that is scrapped. Ooh, wheels off the ground. Now, as I mentioned just at the start, wow, that really is a bit of a rodeo ride over the curb. A wonderful bit of filming. All the cars run on Pirelli tyres. It's best, I believe, if you keep all of them in contact with the tarmac. Great super slow-mo shot there by the crew. Big television crew here finding some great angles, but on a circuit with 21 corners packed into not the world's longest length of lap. 2.624 miles or 4.222 kilometres. There are plenty of places on which to pick up the action. So it's a combination around the circuit at Most, the Most Autodrome, of, as you can see, places where you can run wide over the curves. That's the return leg from the far end of the circuit from turn 10, and it's a constant series of a few little left-hand flicks, but largely flicks to the right. Great spectator banking on the run from all the way down the start-finish straight, but you can walk around the outside down to as far as the series of chicanes to about turn 8 and get a wonderful view of the return leg as well. So certainly a circuit I would recommend coming to. Just to the northwest of Prague by about an hour, and probably less than that to the border. Dresden's only about 60 kilometres away. So Hamza Awega suddenly looking a whole lot better pace there as he winds it up. Will that put him to the top? Yes, it does. 1 minute 42.925 seconds. In fact, that's within a tenth of his best time yesterday. So that cautious start starting to pay dividends. Luca Volgarden, oh, so close, just 23 thousandths of a second behind in the number 18 Pro Sport Performance Porsche. And they've both been put back because the car that got it wrong not so long ago in the hands of Giuseppe Fascicolo is now top of the charts, 1 minute 42.0. And a frequent, there's Luca Volgarden, second fastest, but that is not the best way to do it. Running a little wide, but managing to recover. It's a point on the circuit we've seen many drivers going it off. In fact, he's nowhere near the tarmac there. Rejoins, gravel trap just slowed him enough. Jörg Wiebahn has suddenly slotted into second place, a third of a second down on the fastest pace. Wiebahn, he knows GT4 Porsche Caymans forwards, backwards and sideways, but facing forward is the right way. Sharing that car with Rob Severs. And the 43 Porsche, as I said, just 4/10 of a second, in fact, 0.399 seconds down on Giuseppe Fascicolo's best time. Now Luca Volgarden starting to wind it up again, but staying on the black stuff this time around. 11 and a bit minutes remaining in this qualifying session, the first of two. Marshall's standing out around the circuit in wonderful spring conditions here. That's not the quick lap. We know why for Luca Volgarden. We saw him bouncing off the circuit down through the sweeping chicanes before the far point of the circuit before turn 10, effectively turn 6, 7, 8 and 9 are the chicanes. Two Allied Racing Porsches, one staying on the track and the chasing one not, and that's the one that is second fastest now. In fact, it's chased so fast. Jörg Wiebahn at the wheel. He's been knocked back down to 5th place. That becomes 4th place. There's been a little bit of reordering there. Car 18 has spun and rejoined at turn 16. There is car 18. And don't forget, with Luca Volgarden, that at one point was the fastest car of all, now down in 6th. So he needs to get his head together and tie together a good lap. At the moment, the top 5 runners covered by 0.6 of a second, so it's very competitive. Hamza Awega goes back into second place, and another improvement from Giuseppe Fascicolo, 1 minute 41.850, nearly on the fastest pace of yesterday. So it's a 77 Maserati at the top of the time charts, and number 18, this Porsche Cayman, watching a fair bit of this, falling down the order at the moment after a couple of rather erratic laps from Luca Volgarden. Seen so much of the KTM crossbows at the moment. In fact, they're not the ones setting the pace. Best of the crossbows at the moment is down in the bottom half of the field, so we really need a bit of a move on from them. But the best of those is Sergej Pavlovec, a Czech racer, obviously knows the circuit well, in the 23 Reiter Engineering crossbow. That's in 8th place. It's 1.3 seconds off pole. Gentle breeze over the Must Autodrome. There goes one of the two Maseratis in the field. One is sitting on top of the time charts, looking for any improvement there. 1 minute 41.850 seconds. He's just under 0.2 of a second down on the second place car, which is still Hamza Avega in his Racing 1 Audi. Now this is the other one of the Maseratis, the Gran Turismo MC GT4, number 7, E-Sky WP Racing Team, and it's Maciej Markinovic, Polish racer at the wheel at the moment. 4th fastest, needs to find really not very much at all, because 4th fastest, 0.271 of a second down on the ultimate pace. Clearly not going to be do it on this lap. The driver on the move, however, has been Jörg Wiebahn. And Wiebahn, he was the European GT4 champion in 2013 and 2016. There's nothing he doesn't know about Porsche Caymans. He's 0.15 of a second down on Fascicolo's Maserati. That's in the Pro-Am class. This one, the one we're looking at the moment, is in the AM class. In fact, I beg your pardon, Giuseppe Fascicolo is also in the AM class, sharing with Romy Dall'Antonio. It's the driver pairing that really counts. Maserati engine sounding absolutely fabulous around the back part, going past the rear of the paddock there, down to the final sequence of corners. Very tricky final couple of corners. They lure you in. You've accelerated down a decent straight, and then you just got to be careful through the two of them, much tighter than they look on approach, which is what caught out several drivers yesterday and already this morning. So is there an improvement? Not quite. So very consistent by Markinovic, but he stays in 4th place. So just to reiterate, there's a Maserati on top, the one we're looking at in 4th, and between them we have the Porsche Cayman of Jörg Wiebahn and Hamza Avega in the number 16 Audi R8 LMS from Racing 1. There is, as you can see, just over 1 second between the top 6 runners, and Luca Volgarten, if he hadn't had so many moments, or one big moment off the circuit, he could well be improving, but at the moment he's in the pits for a checkup, sitting in 6th place overall. The drivers who are making their mark tend to be the ones lower in the field who've yet to put it down. Here's a good pairing, Benjamin Mazatis and Ilmari Korpivara down from Finland, but it's Mazatis at the wheel in the white KTM Crossbow at the moment. And he needs to get a move on. He has just improved last time around. That's only good for 9th place overall. 1.4 seconds down on the ultimate pace. And for Mazatis, his opening sequence doesn't mark an improvement. The lap, as ever, split into 3 different elements. The first 3 parts form a lap. Mazatis has not improved on his best time in the first part. That's a corner where so many drivers run wide. Turn 13, unlucky for some. No improvement in the second part either. So it's all about just stringing together a good sequence of laps. 13 cars out to play. The castle in the background, a rear shot there of the sweeper of turn 17. That little kink on the back straight before going up to turns 20 and 21. So the time to beat, 1 minute 41.85 seconds. The time still in the hands of Giuseppe Fascicolo in the Scuderia Viorba course Maserati. Set some while ago now. Jörg Wiebahn has got to within 0.15 of a second. So no improvement for Benjamin Mazatis. German racer, he was in fact half a second off his best pace, so he wasn't missing by just a fraction here, a fraction there, but he's got clear track ahead of him. Time of plenty, just under 5 minutes remaining in the first qualifying session. You can already see some marks on the front right-hand corner from the driver's point of view of that KTM Crossbow. He's rubbed against something, or someone. You'll see in a second when the car comes fully into frame. You can see the tyre scuffing on the outside. Don't know if he just had a little run off the circuit yesterday and kissed a tyre wall. Car 23, Reiter Engineering. Still the best of the KTM Crossbows since Sergei Pavlovich. 6th fastest at the moment, and you know what? He could be on for a really good lap. He's improved in his first quarter. You can see the purple time. That means best of all in the middle sector. So he is sixth, but where's he going to slot in? He's 0.9 of a second off the ultimate pace. And then he makes a bit of a mess of the final sequence. It does improve his lap time. He's now 0.6 of a second off that fantastic middle sector of the circuit. I suggest showing great local circuit knowledge through the very technical part around the back. Haven't seen so much of the Sin R1. Ivan Vlachov from Bulgaria. He is fifth fastest at the moment. Just 0.2 of a second ahead of Pavlovic. No improvement there for Vlachov, but he's consistent. He's just within a tenth of a second of his best time through that very tricky turn 1. Turn 2 understeer all over the place, and the wonderful rumble as he puts the throttle down on the R1. So our top 2 runners, Giuseppe Fascicolo and Jörg Wiebahn, in the pits at the moment. 3 minutes on the clock. I think they feel they've done their job, but it's very close. Hamza Avega is just 32 hundredths of a second down on Jörg Wiebahn, so it's close to the provisional front row. And now Sergei Pavlovic. Last time around he set that good opening sector and the fastest middle sector of all. He's done it again, each time reducing the time it's taken to do those sectors. So he's 0.65 of a second down on the ultimate pace. He wasn't very good through the final sector last time around. It took him just over 41 seconds for the final third part of the lap. It's not split equally. Third party did 41 seconds. If he can do it in under 40 point something, we will see him move from 6th up the order, waiting for him to cross the timing beam. Has he had trouble in the final sector again? Still waiting. Yes, he was another 0.2 slower, so he stays in 6th place. Really struggles through those final 2 corners. Vast majority of runners in the pits, and in fact the one who may be making the improvement out on the circuit now is Maciej Markinovic in the number 7 Maserati, down in 5th place. He does make an improvement. Suddenly I lost him on the timing screen because he went fastest of all, 5th up to 1st, so he's now 37 thousandths of a second ahead. So late improvement. So it's 2 Maseratis at the top, but the one that's been sitting there for a very long time during this qualifying session, number 77, is now second fiddle to this one, with the Polish racer Markinovic leaving it late for the eSky sponsored Gran Turismo MC GT4 from WP Racing Team. He's done it just when it needs to be done. Who is there to fight back? Drivers down the tail end of the order are the ones who are just gradually improving, but they're, in fact, it's a big cover of time down to the car that's bottom of the time charts at the moment, which is Franjo Kovac, still learning his big Mercedes because he's 6 seconds off the pace. But other than that, 11 of the 13 are covered by under 2 seconds. A very competitive field here at the Most Autodrome. And unfortunately for, as you can see, for Maciej Markinovic there, he got rather obstructed. Still got time for one more lap. But the KTM crossbow in his path. That was 23. That was Sergei Pavlovic in the best of the KTM crossbows. Just under 0.7 of a second down. This lap, as you can see, not a great one. Red on the screen means no improvement at all in the first 2 of the 3 sectors, and in fact he's calling it quits. They're both calling it quits, which will leave very few cars out on the track for the final 20 seconds, and one of them is Franjo Kovac. We just mentioned him in the Beza Group Racing Mercedes. He's just found half a second, still leaves him last on the charts. He's got to find another 2 and a bit seconds to see if he can get ahead of David Klar in the number 24 Felbermayr Reiter entry. David Klar, one of the Czech drivers in the field. But the driver who's taken provisional pole position won't be provisional for much longer because the qualifying session is up, so just the cars out on the circuit at the moment can beat it. Beat it is the number 7 Maserati from the eSky WP Racing Team. So job very well done indeed. And you can see Maciej looking to get out of the car. Hamza Avega at one point was at the top end of the charts. He's 0.2 of a second down. He's just set his fastest middle sector. So late charge. I said pole was provisional. When you're dealing in just over a 1/5 of a second between the top 4, it's very tight. And when one of them, the one in 4th place, Hamza Avega, is still out on the circuit and is racing one R8 LMS, what is he going to do? A good final sector or not? Well, he gains 1 position. He goes ahead of Jörg Wiebahn. So we've got Maserati, Audi, 3rd fastest there for Hamza Avega, and then Jörg Wiebahn in the best place of the Porsche Caymans. And really, for all 3 drivers who've managed to out-qualify Jörg Wiebahn in a Porsche Cayman. That is quite an achievement. Even Vlachov ends up in 5th place in the Sin R1, and at the end it was, as he had been for quite a while at that session, Sergei Pavlovich, one of the Czech drivers, bringing his KTM crossbow as the best place of the crossbows, home in 6th place. And another improvement on his final lap for Franjo Kovac. Slowest of all, but in the last 2 laps he managed to find 2 seconds. So a good finish to the session for Kovac in number 20. So that's qualifying 1 out of the way. People working there around the circuit. You can see the wonderful view from the banking just on beyond the 2 grandstands on the start-finish straight, looking back at the control tower, the pit lane, the castle in the background. And if they swing their eyes to the left, they can see the first corner. So Maciej Markinovic, fastest by a whisker, 0.037 of a second from fellow Maserati racer Giuseppe Fascicola. Hamza Owega waving the flag with a very good final lap right at the end in his Audi from Racing 1. Jörg Wiebahn, he's been there, he's seen it, he's done it, he's won it. And his Porsche Cayman ends up 4th fastest, just under a 5th of a second down on the ultimate pace. Even Vlachov 5th in the Sin Cars R1 GT4. And as you can see, right at the end, it came down to 4.7 seconds. Franjo Kovac finding his feet in the Besa Group Racing Mercedes. But Freddie fast by name, but not quite yet by pace in the other Mercedes. He's 11th fastest. KTM crossbows in the middle of the mix. So let's see what their teammates can do when they go out and have their qualifying session. But right now, it's bragging rights to the Maserati crews. And let's take a look at the replay. Hamza Owega was the first driver out of the pits in the Racing 1 Audi R8 LMS. Got some heat into his tyres very cautiously and then started to bring up the pace. But then it was Giuseppe Fascicola who said, "This is the mark you're going to have to beat." And he put down a great time in his Viorba course Maserati. Using the curbs, you can see quite rough on the inside there. And at turn 1 into 2, it's understeer. You just want to get that power down. Maciej Markinovic in the other car from the WP Racing team, the other Maserati. Bit of a slow burner, started to work his way up the charts, but came good right at the very end of the session. And for fans today, wonderful sunny morning here. Here we have Q2 will start at 10:35 local time. Was due for 10:30 start, but we had a 5-minute delay during the GT Masters qualifying session early this morning. Nice clean session so far. It's good to see people on that banking that runs all the way from the grandstands overlooking the start-finish straight down towards about turn 9. So it's a great place to come along. Loads of catering facilities along the top. Pitch your deck chairs, sit there in the sun, have a coffee, have a hot dog, whatever you fancy. And certainly a lot of people starting to do that today. And we have racing here at the Mercer Autodrome starting at 11:50. Strange feature of the circuit here is some old seating just before the first of the grandstands with a series of cars that appear to have been crashed on it, all painted yellow and black. I don't know if they're supposed to denote cars used in crash testing, but let's call it an art installation. Half a dozen cars scattered around the red and white, rather broken up banked seating here over the start-finish straight. And if you know very little about the Most Autodrome, it's been, you don't really dare say it, but it has been the second circuit in terms of fame in Czechoslovakia and now, of course, the Czech Republic. And having to play second fiddle to Brno over the decades. This circuit was built in 1983. It's very much got a taste of the 1980s, and I rather like that, in fact. Facilities really rather nice and simple, and the paddock easy to get into. Probably a little bit restricted for the enormous transporters that all the teams now have, but certainly a place of great character. And in spring sunshine, it looks absolutely fantastic. It's a challenge for the drivers. Not got a series of enormously fast corners. It's got a series of technical corners, but there are some fast sections in between, so it gives the drivers plenty to think about. Sin R1, looking at it down in the pit lane. Even Vlachov took that out in the first session. He doesn't have a teammate this weekend. In fact, 4 of the 13 cars do not have a teammate. So come the race, they will have the pit stop. Has to be at a minimum time of standstill in the pits, which is plenty of time for a co-driver to be inserted in the car, or the first driver removed, the second driver put on board without any deficit. And again, by having a minimum time in the pits, it restricts the number of pit crew you need. It's not like a Formula One pit stop. You have several people doing effectively the on and the off or whatever. But it's a feature that's been very sensibly installed in GT3 racing to an extent. But it used to be, but now it's GT4 that has the minimum pit time. Again, keeping the cost down. GT3, of course, you can do it as fast as you possibly can, but with a fixed number of, or a maximum number of mechanics. Good to see so many people sitting out enjoying the sunshine here, waiting for the second session to start. They will then have a chance to go and have a pit walk, and then a full program of events with the ADAC TCR series coming up with the first race of the day, and then the big grid put together for the ADAC GT Masters. Now, one of the KTM crews is shared by the Niederhausers. So there's Marilyn Niederhauser on the outside and Patrick Niederhauser, real hot shoe, installed on board. And there's Marilyn. She's done her bit. Just to stress, 9 of the 13 cars have a 2-driver entry. And doesn't matter where you are, what language you're speaking about. Drivers just use their hands to describe their cars, and you can be fairly accurate with guessing what they're trying to explain. This circuit, as I say, built in 1983, but before that there had been racing since the late 40s. First of all, motorbike races on a circuit organised around, set up around a brewery down by the railway station, and then there was a street circuit. Great big inter-series sports cars raced there up until 1979, thereabouts, and then just imagine that street circuit with things like great big toys, DFV powered cars powering around the circuit. But then, after looking at circuits elsewhere, it was decided to build their own, and it's certainly been very popular, and nothing fills it like the European Truck Racing Championship. Hugely popular when it comes here, and truck racing has been coming to Must since 1992. But hasn't been a linear line of progress for the circuit, because in fact its safety license was taken away by the FIA and the FIM in 1995, and then they had to bring it up to more modern standards before it was allowed to race again. And then gradually built up its agenda, and certainly having the first visit from the ADAC Roadshow, supported here by, of course, the GT4 Central European Cup, is putting some star names on this circuit, and it certainly looks absolutely brilliant in the sunshine this morning. So we're nearly up to 10:35, another minute away, and then we'll have the second of the 2 Q sessions. Q1 we've had out the way, 20 minutes. With that great charge right at the end by Maciej Markinovic. He's now handed over the number 7 Maserati to Lukasz Kreski. Waiting to see if they can make it Q1 and Q2 pole positions, as obviously we'll go forward to the 2 separate races. This afternoon's race starting at 14:50, and tomorrow's race will be earlier in the day at 11:45. So we'll be deciding, sorry, not 11:45. It will be, sorry, 14:50 again. I jumped the wrong way there looking down my timesheets. So 20 minutes more, as we saw in that first session. A few drivers just discovering certain points on the circuit where if you press too hard you can easily run off the circuit. We saw them going off at turn 11, wide over the curbs. Handful getting it wrong also out of turn 13. They're the fast left-hand flicks around the back of the circuit. So for those drivers that aren't sharing with anybody, they go out all over again. So Hamza Avega ended up 3rd when deciding the grid for race 1, this afternoon's race. And he's going out again for a second time to see if he can also put himself up towards the front end of the grid for tomorrow afternoon's race. Pole sitting car for race 1, just going out of our shot there, the number 7 Maserati. And for the basic group Mercedes, that's Thomas Pekar, hopefully using his knowledge of local circuits. He's a Czech racer. going through in the Beza group. Number 20, Mercedes, and behind him we just saw Ivan Vlaškov from Bulgaria in the one and only sim in this race, the Sin R1. All the drivers just being cautious on this outlap. Early in the season, you don't want to do anything stupid. Lots of racing for GT4 in the various series around Europe, but most notably the packed GT4 Euro Series. 44 cars for that first round at Zolder a few weeks ago, supporting the Blancpain GT Series. Looked fantastic, and drivers were all given a very big warning before the start. Don't be a hero down into turn one. Get your season off to a decent start that involves more than one straight and one corner of racing, and they, bless them, listen to the endless instructions along that line, and a very clean and tidy start to the first race in particular. So Hamza Ovega, third fastest in the first session, and will use and build on that experience as he goes down the sloping start-finish straight, followed by the two Maseratis that ended up first and second on the grid. Here's the Lechner Racing Mercedes. Freddie Fast, Austrian racer, at the wheel. Ended up in 11th of 13 runners in the first session. Just getting a feel for the circuit. A lot of the drivers having a run here for the first time, but certainly for the three Czech racers, I'm sure it's just concentrating on the car, not the circuit. They will know this very well indeed. Mercedes always just sound so fantastic. A wonderful, menacing grumble. Learning the gradient changes and how much curb you can use. I'd suggest that was bordering on about enough there for Maciej Dresser, one of a couple of Polish racers in the event. So pole with one Polish racer for race one. That's Maciej Markinovic. And for race two, let's see what Maciej Dresser can do, but at the moment being sort of almost just sharing a bit of track with one of the Allied Racing Porsche Caymans and pulling away, showing he's winding up to pace, but no flying lap time set just yet. But if anyone's going to go to the top of the time charts, I would suggest it will be Maciej Dresser. Fastest of all in the first sector, fastest of all in the second sector. Turn 21 approach, turn 21 exited from. And let's see how good a time this will be. We saw the times come down in great chunks in the first qualifying session. 1:42.799 seconds. So he's top. Nobody else has completed a flying lap. He'll need to find about around a second to see if he can beat the best times in Q1. But he's got plenty of time to do that. His first flying lap at the moment, 2.4 seconds clear of anybody else. And the car that's second fastest is the number 7 Maserati that ended up on pole for race one. Lukas Kreski taking over from his Polish teammate. And Patrick Niederhauser just having a moment, I would suggest. That's using the curbs, using the grass beyond. Well, drifting where it wasn't wanted, but again, just showing how technical the circuit can be towards the end of the lap. You get that sequence from turn 15, 16 and 17, and it's just so easy to get the tail out. It's so easy to want to put the power down sooner than perhaps the doctor would have recommended. Wonderful drift, but that's not what was wanted at all from Patrick Niederhauser. And I thought if anybody could make... Oh, sorry, that was a 24 car, not Niederhauser. It's Maciej Dresser. Apologise to Patrick Niederhauser. Yeah, well, Niederhauser down in the 26 car, not the 24, so he's in 9th at the moment, but expect that one to come good. Also expect Hamza Ovega, again cautious to start a session. He's down 8th out of the 10 who's set a flying lap, but don't forget he's already done Q1, so it's all about picking his moment, not getting stuck in traffic and laying it down. Third fastest in the first qualifying session. And I would think we'll be able to stick it together. But even Vlaškov is on a real flyer. Even's in 4th place at the moment. But I think we're going to have a change at the top. Is Ovega going top? Yes, he is. 1:41.780, just over a second clear. But I have a feeling that's going to be challenged. Oh, very close. Half a second down from Romy Dall'Antonio. So that's 77 Maserati looking good. But it's the number 11 car I want to watch. Coming up to complete his lap round out of turn 20 through 21. And Vlaškov down in 6th at the moment. Target 1 minute 41.780 seconds to beat. Should do that easily. Well, he does by nearly half a second. So 1 minute 41.306 seconds. So Vlaškov has learnt well from that first session. He was 5th in Q1, and at the moment, with a time that was better than the best in Q1, he is fastest of all. Braking hard for that super tight turn 1, turn 2, just having to be cautious and not get on the power too soon. As you can see, out over the curbing. But just enough not to kick up the dirt on the outside of the circuit. Hamza Avega is pressing on. Oh, and I said watch out for Patrick Niederhauser. After, if anyone can make a KTM crossbow fly, it's him, and he's moved it up into 3rd place overall. So it's Vlaškov in the Sin, Avega, who we're looking at now in the Audi, and then Patrick Niederhauser putting down a very good time as expected. Car number 26, best of the crossbows. Middle sector perhaps a little bit obstructed, but for Hamza Avega, he improved on his first sector, not so good on his second sector. Now coming round the final sweep of corners, he needs to find almost half a second to depose Ivan Vlaškov in the Sin. Is he going to do it this time? No, he didn't. So Avega within 2/10 of his best lap so far. 2nd fastest, so it's Vlaškov 1st. 2nd Avega in the Audi. 3rd Romy Dall'Antonio in the 77 Maserati. 26 Patrick Niederhauser got up to 3rd, has fallen back to 6th, but he just set his best opening sector, the best middle sector through turns 20 and 21 tied. He doesn't get too loose out over the stripe curbing and then the green curbing beyond. Will he be going top with this lap? Patrick Niederhauser goes into 2nd place, so he's just under 1/5 of a second down. So it's Vlaškov and then the KTM crossbow, the pink and blue one, being pushed very hard indeed by Patrick Niederhauser. Again, clipping the corner as tightly as he can. Bounce of the suspension travel as it comes back down to earth. And then it's a case of just being delicate and staying off the throttle, getting the car as straight as you can, and then planting the throttle. And Patrick Niederhauser, so successful all around the world with his racing. And pushing right to the limit. You can see the tail started to kick out, but he kept his foot in there. Hamza Avega starting to fight back on his current lap in the number 16 Audi. There is the Audi in the background of the shot, out to the edge of the circuit. He's got a Porsche Cayman tucked in behind, but Cayman's not featuring yet at the top end of the charts. But Avega with an improvement in his first sector, improvement in his second sector. But as he does that, Patrick Niederhauser going faster still, an improvement in the third sector for... Sorry, in fact, Matthias Dresser has gone up into 3rd place. But immediately Avega demotes him, goes up to 2nd, and he in turn, we suddenly have a charge from 41, Allied Racing, Nicholas Scholl and Porsche Cayman we saw just behind Hamza Avega. He goes 2nd, he's 0.113 of a second down. And for Patrick Niederhauser, he's got to do it all over again. He's under two tenths of a second down on pole, but he's in 4th place. So let's just run through it before he crosses the start-finish line. It's Vlaškov from Nicholas Scholl, Hamza Avega, Patrick Niederhauser. Here he comes in number 26. Will he improve? Yes, he does. He goes top. 1 minute 41.085 seconds. Still plenty of time to go. Over 10 minutes remaining. Now the number 18 Porsche Cayman. Hands of Maurice Österreich, son of Marcus Österreich, former Mercedes junior racer back in the days with Heinz Harald Frentzen and Michael Schumacher. And Moritz going well here. Just starting to knit his time together. He's 1.2 seconds down on the pace, so he's going to need to knit a good time together. 1 minute 41.085 seconds. Patrick Niederhauser top in the number 26 K Racing Reiter Engineering KTM crossbow. Hamza Avega trying his best to fight back. He's improving around this lap, but he's up and down the time charts, down in 4th place now, 0.392 seconds down on this new pace set by Patrick Niederhauser. Will there be an improvement from Avega? There should be. There is, but it only moves him up to 3rd place. He's just over a quarter of a second down, so Nicholas Scholl will have to fight back in the number 41 Allied Racing Porsche Cayman. In fact, that's the less fancy of the two Allied racing cars. It's running in the ADAC Cup. And Rob Severs' Jörg V-Bahn version, with Severs on board at the moment, it has just improved, but it's down in 12th out of 13 positions. Vega, again, a green time on his timing screen, which means he set the fastest of his first sector of the lap, but he's got traffic up ahead. One of the two Allied Racing Porsches and the Lechner Racing Mercedes. Not as quick as he is, but Hamza maybe getting a little bit distracted, running a little wide there out of turn 10, kicking up the dirt. Now through the sweepers of, that's turn 13. Over the crest, I'm afraid they're going to interrupt his lap. Yes, his middle sector, not his best. So, for Hamza, does he drop back? No. He's just going to get past them. You can either drop back by 2 or 3 seconds and then run at your best pace and you shouldn't be obstructed, or you can try and work your way past. But you are compromising both this lap and potentially the next, so that has to be taken into consideration. At the moment, the 47 Mercedes down with Freddie Fast, its slowest of the 13 runners, so he does need to get past this, but he's not doing so. There'll be no problem for pace down the start-finish straight for Freddie Fast, but the light's being flashed by Hamza Vega. He's compromised his lap. Yeah, he was about 7/10 of a second down on his potential best, but he's still got to get past Freddie Fast. But where? Looking at a replay, this was right at the far end of the circuit. Maybe just looking at the cars ahead, considering what he can do, but out of turn 10, kicking up the dust, that won't have helped. And in fact, there's a bit of a trench being dug over the curbing on the outside there. You can see how it affects the attitude of the car. As he looks forward, he keeps his foot in there, but it's not what everyone would have wanted. So busy-ish pit lane down there. A few of the KTM crossbows sitting in there. The Baser Group Mercedes at the bottom of the shot. But out on track, car number 24 seems to have the track fairly much to himself. Maciej Drescher sharing with David Clark. David went out in the first session. Drescher should be the quicker of the two. He's got clear track. He's just set his fastest first sector. He's 0.65 of a second down on provisional pole for Q2, which is for tomorrow's race. And then he's set not his best middle sector, but he may be able to pick up a little bit with no one in front of him as he goes through the sweeping sector out of turn 17, then the left kink at turn 18. 19 is almost a non-existent corner, it's a tight, slight left kink. He just negotiated that. And then 20 and 21. Had a few drivers going off at turn 20 yesterday, and this morning there's the gravel trap that gathers them all up. And then turn 21, slightly uphill run between the two corners. Almost everybody goes out over the red and white, curbing onto the green and beyond. Will there be an improvement here from Maciej Drescher? No, there won't. Very close to his best, 2/10 away from his best. And we talked of cars going off, and that's the E-Sky Maserati number 7. Lucas Kreski down in 11th place. Is there any damage to his car? Did he just go through the gravel? Did he hit the barriers on the outside? Let's have a look at the nose of that car when he eventually comes back to the circuit. Bouncing across the grass. It looks all right. Can't see if there's any damage to the splitter. Again, this tricky sequence of corners. Turn 15, 16, 17. This is, well, very wrong for 17. There we are. That's the definition of understeer. But did he hit the barrier on the outside? I think if he didn't, there was about a millimetre in it. And once the dust was cleared, he was able to continue on his way. I can't see any damage to that front right corner. It's just full of gravel, but quite an unusual place to go off there out of 17. I think there might have been a tiny, tiny touch. Just under 5 minutes remaining, and very frustrating there for the number 7 crew. They're on provisional pole. They are on actual pole for race 1 for tomorrow's race. It's this afternoon's race, but we're trying to decide the grid for tomorrow's race. That's why we're in Q2. A little bit of gravel dropped on the track. I don't think that should interrupt anybody else. Right. Quite a lot. The top 3 runners are in there in the pits at the moment. Car number 41, 4th fastest, in the hands of Nicholas Scholl. That's one of the 2 Allied Racing Porsche Caymans out on the circuit. Plenty of space to go and play. Car number 25, that is down in 10th position out of the 13 runners. At the moment in the hands of Ilmari Korpivaara from Finland. 1.4 seconds down from pole position at the moment. Improved in the first sector, hasn't improved in the second sector. Corpivara needs to find about 0.4 of a second to go up one position ahead of Moritz Österreich. Will there be an improvement? There may be. Will there be a position change? And there won't be a position change. There has been an improvement. So 0.2 of a second found. Again, that very, very technical turn 1 to turn 2 combination. So you don't really want to be doing it like that. Again, a little bit of marking on the bodywork on the side of that KTM crossbow. It's all about encouraging you to get on the throttle before the car's really ready for it. And as you can see, had to come off the throttle all over again, on the power too soon for Ilmari there, for Ilmari Corpivara from Finland, silver-rated driver. So as we look at more replays, this is not the Maserati that went off over the gravel at turn 19, but over the grass instead. That's the sister car, number 77. At the moment in the hands of Romy Dall'Antonia, 7th fastest, so mid-grid position, and 7th fastest only puts it 0.8 off pole, so really in the mix. It's all about just getting a good string of lap times together. And that was turn 16 where we had the spin. Well, it was sort of off at 15 and then rejoining at turn 16 for the 77 Maserati. And 47 Freddie Fast, slowest at the moment, under 2 seconds away from the ultimate pace, so he's certainly been setting a decent time, but he's gone for a spin. So ambition getting the better of him. That's what we call a nowhere near spin. It was off and away, but very cleverly kept it out of the gravel there at turn 20. Tricky corner. As I say, it sort of hauls you into it. The penultimate corner, and this time he's just going to limp back into the pits. 2 minutes on the clock before the checkered flag will be shown, and at the moment it's the number 26 car that will be taking provisional pole, or is on provisional pole, maybe taking pole. Patrick Niederhauser sharing with his sister, the two Swiss drivers. And Marilyn we saw explaining the performance and behaviour of the car. So for Freddie Fast, I'm sure that's the end of his session. So gap between first and second, 0.221 of a second. Patrick Niederhauser ahead of the Sin entry of Ivan Vlachov. But they're in the pits. Don't look as though they're going out again. A driver who may topple them is out on the circuit at the moment. Did a slow lap last time around. Hamza Avega. We've seen him in both the first session, in which he came third overall, and this session where he's been right at the sharp end, but he needs to find just over a quarter of a second, because also out on the track at the moment, looking to challenge him will be Nicholas Scholl in the number 41 Allied Racing Porsche Cayman. And that's what you do when you run to the edge of the circuit and beyond. Just keep it together and go back on. So into the final minute, and that is the car that's got pole for this afternoon's race, but at the moment in the hands of Lukas Kreski. It's only going to be 11th on the grid for tomorrow's round of the GT4 Central European Cup here at the Merst Autodrome. Ilmari Corpivara down in 10th place, and so many drivers that they can't improve on their middle sector time, but they can on their first sector time, and that's all down to getting it right through that very tricky turn 1 and 2 combination. They have to work out the best way of putting the power down. Corpivara, will there be any improvement? Yes, there is. Stay in 10th. They're getting closer and closer to Moritz Österreich. But the 25 KTM crossbow still in 10th. 1.144 seconds down on the ultimate pace. Oh, a new fastest first sector from anyone, and it's 41. It's Nicholas Scholl in the Allied Racing Porsche Cayman, but again, like so many before, they don't improve on their middle sector. Maybe it's because they got their middle sector nailed early on. Maybe simply because it's just so technical in that first sector of the circuit. And it takes time to find your craft there. And brake as late as you possibly dare seems to be the message for Romy Dall'Antonia in the 77 Maserati. Are we going to see anybody move fastest of all? In fact, Matthias Dresser right at the end just set the fastest final sector. Here's 41. I was looking to see where Nicholas Scholl might end up. He set the fastest first sector of anyone, not the best middle sector, but will his third sector be good enough to move him up a position? No, it doesn't. It backed off. He lost about 4/10, in fact, so he stays in 4th place, and I think that's probably sorted our order in the favour of 26 ahead of 11 and 16. Nice symmetry there. They were Third fastest, Hamza Ovega in the first session, and still with Hamza on board for Q2 for tomorrow's race. There it is, number 16, and someone else has just been off kicking up the dirt ahead of him. In fact, he's probably going to kick a bit up himself. Don't think we're going to see any late improvements from Hamza. No, his first sector isn't his best, his second sector isn't his best. So it looks like he's going to stay in third position, but very, very tight on times. Top three covered by just over a quarter of a second. So for the last time for Hamza Ovega, German racer, over the start-finish line, but this time past the checkered flag. Yes, it was a sort of bringing it home lap. Realised he didn't have time in it, and Hamza will really rather rue the fact that he wasted several laps getting stuck in traffic. But for most of the drivers, they have stories like this one. How hard you dared to push. That's Ilmari Korpivara getting it wrong round the back of the circuit. It just encourages you to go in too deep. That's turn 19. And it's more of a corner than people realise, but now we know the grids for this afternoon's race and tomorrow races. So for the GT4 Central European Cup here at the Most Autodrome, there is the qualifying order. And it's Patrick Niederhauser, top by just over a fifth of a second from the sin of Ivan Vlaškov. Hamza Ovega, another good session for him, third fastest in the one and only Audi from Racing One. Nicola Scholl had a series of good laps in the Porsche Cayman from Allied Racing, the better of their two cars, and the best of the Mercedes was Thomas Pekar right at the end, so he really picked up the pace, half a second down. Maciej Dresser showing that KTM crossbows can go well. One's on pole, he is sixth fastest. Talking of fast, Freddie Fast down, bringing up the rear. But the car that hasn't shown its hand yet is the Jörg Wiebahn and Rob Severs Porsche Cayman from Allied Racing. I'm sure we'll see a lot more from them when we get to the races. But two qualifying sessions done and dusted. Most of the drivers stayed on the circuit and they will all have learnt a great deal. And now, of course, we're looking forward, as we look at these final replays, to the first of the two rounds of this opening weekend for the GT4 Central European Cup. First race at 14:50 this afternoon. The grid is set, the weather is fair. We'll come back to the action when it happens this afternoon on a packed event here. But for Hamza Ovega, 2 sessions, 2 third places overall, and he will have enjoyed his time in the Racing One Audi, and certainly, like many a driver, learning the circuit for the first time, discovering just how technical it is. The Sin R1 went very, very well in the hands of Ivan Vlaškov. You can see there, just getting the right amount of braking done and staying on the circuit. A lot of the drivers finding themselves running out of circuit, going out over the curbs. And Patrick Niederhauser sharing with Marilyn Niederhauser. He mastered the craft. The KTM crossbows coming good in his hands in particular. They'd been mid-grid for Q1, but for Q2 he showed they can go to the top. He knew how to bounce that crossbow over the curbs, take some curb, just not too much, and also stay off the throttle until your car's as straight as possible coming out of turn 2. Very, very tight, and drivers finding it all too easy just to drift wide over the curbing. But the grid is now set for this afternoon's race. That's it for now from the GT4 Central European Cup from the Most Autodrome.